So I recently attended Jamstack conference in San Francisco last week, and it was a great event. Shout out to Colin from Click for sponsoring me. But I spent most of the days, talking most of the 2 days talking to various companies and seeing what they had to offer. And as some of you might know, I have my own startup called Astro Collab. And so one of the biggest things at risk right now is I don't have error monitoring built into the application. So if something were to go wrong, client side or server side, it goes wrong bad, and there's no way to like prevent that or anything like that. So, one company that stood out is Airbrake, and they essentially solved that problem. And their catch that really caught my attention was that I could set it up in 10 minutes. So I decided to put that to the test, and I did a live integration of adding error monitoring into Astra Collab right then and there, and I was able to get it up and running literally in 10 minutes. We had a timer. So yeah, this is Airbrake, fearless deployment, faster fixes. As you can see, they have a free trial that works great for whatever the use case may be. All of these companies use them, Clara, things like that. And their main thing is like they like to like work with companies from the ground up. Working with them, enhancing their products, seeing what they can also improve. It's a very small team, even though they have been bought out by a larger company called Logic Monitor. I think it's called Logic Monitor. But yeah, we're just going to be doing a live integration of Airbrake into a simple Express and React application. So let's get started. So this will be a TypeScript project. So we can just go ahead and do that. And I'm going to start off with the Express server. So we're going to use Express in the back end, like stated, and then React in the front end. So yarn create, nkd server, and then git, and then we're just gonna set that up as well, and then cd into server. Alright, and then we're just gonna open this up in VS Code. Cool, so we've got this set up. The way I like to set it up is I like to have a source file, and inside of that an index.ts. But before we get started, we're just going to bring in some configuration that we do need. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So we're going to need Express, cool, and then we're going to add TypeScript as well. Completely forgot to add yarn add. Alright, let's try this now. At type/node add type/express. So the next thing we want to add is our tsconfig file. So you want to add that in the root as well. So it's going to be tsconfig.json. And I'm just going to paste this from old projects. This repo will be public as well if you guys want to explore all the different configurations that I have. This will be publicly available. Cool, and then we're just gonna add some scripts as well. So let's actually add it up here above the dependencies. Scripts. Cool. So essentially, I'm gonna explain what these each do. So watch is for all the files, and then dev, basically. Instead of having to like run yarn watch and then yarn start separately, you can just do yarn dev, which will do essentially both of those for us at the same time. And we don't need this. Cool. All right, so the first thing, of course, is to import Express from Express, and there's a typo. And then I like to just do this in case I have like any async I need to do, asynchronous functionality. So you can do that. And then the next thing is to const app is equal to express. We're going to turn off Copilot. All right, the next thing we want to do is do app.listen process.env.ports. And we're going to set up our env file as well. Or let's say 5,000 if the port is not defined. And then from here, we're going to say console.log server ready at localhost, and then let's say what the port is. Let's actually define the port up here. And we can just pass the port as such. And then we can just go ahead and run this to make sure everything is working. We forgot to add tsc watt. Now we can type in our yarn dev command, and it should compile, and we're throwing an error. That's probably because we haven't defined our .env, but let's take a look and double check everything. Yeah, so we also forgot to do out there, and then we want this to be our dist folder. So we can just go ahead and delete these, and we should now see a dist folder that's compiled for us. Cool. And we should see server running on localhost 5,000. So the reason it's a 5,000 is because we defined it, but we also want it to be in our .env. So go ahead and create 3 files, one called .env, one called .env.example, and then inside of our source we're going to do env.d.ts. Cool. So inside of here we're obviously going to put our port, which is 5,000. Let's do a different port just to make sure that this works properly, and then we can change it back later. And then you're just going to do that for that. And then inside of our env.d.ts, we're going to say declare namespace, and then node.js, and then export interface process env. So this just basically tells TypeScript, hey, we have these environment variables available to us, making it type safe as well. Cool. So let's go ahead and restart our server. So something isn't working properly, and that's because we don't have our .env package. .env safe. Now we can go ahead and import that inside of here. You're going to do import .env safe/config. Now everything should be working as usual. And we can see it is using our environment variables. So that's how you set up the environment variables for the Express. Now let's set up a test route. So we're going to do routes. And in here, let's just say test.ts. And then we can say import express from express, and then const router is equal to express.router, and then we're just going to do a simple router.get, and then let's just say posts or something like that. And then we say rec, which is a type of request from express, and a res, which is a type from express response type. Cool. And then export default router. And then inside of here, let's just say we want to throw return essentially what we want is to throw an error, which is a way to test that the errors are working. Yeah, let's actually hold off on this. We'll properly configure this once we have Airbrake. I'm not sure yet how I want to throw the error. So we can go ahead and actually use the route. So you're going to import it. So import test from routes and tests. And then inside of our main, you're just going to do dot use, and then we're just gonna say test and then test as such, and then verify everything is working. So this is throwing an error because we're not using the variable. So what we can actually do is just add an underscore before each one, as such, until we're ready to use them, and then this will not throw any errors now. So this is Airbrake. I've showed this before, but we're essentially just gonna hit get started, and I'm just gonna put Astrocola because this is my company. And then we're just gonna do email. Alright, well, once you're in your dashboard after creating your account, you're gonna want to go to install Airbrake down here, and then for us we're gonna do Express. And essentially, we're just going to first install Airbrake and add airbrake/node. So let's just go ahead and copy the first three const variables that are being created. And come into our index and just paste it in. We're gonna move this directly into our .env, so let's just do that right now before we forget. And don't worry, once this video goes live, I will be deactivating these keys. So the first thing we want is process.env.airbrake project ID. And then we can just go ahead and copy that and replace this with project key. Yep. So we're gonna go into here and just paste these. And then again copy those into here as well as in our env.t.ts. This will be a string. And this will also be a string. Cool. Let's go ahead and save those. We don't need these anymore except for the .env. So don't forget to, again, copy and paste your keys into here. Cool. Alrighty, now that we have all that set up, we can go ahead and start to use Airbrake. So we want to come back here and just copy and paste this. And you want to do it right before your routes. And then you want to apply this right before your app.listen. So you want to go ahead and do that right before wherever you're listening. Before you start the server, you want to add this line there, and then you want to add the make middleware right before your routes as well. And cool, that's literally it. That's all that takes to set up Airbrake in Express. I think we spent more time setting up the server than like actually integrating Airbrake. And then for the actual route, I realized I want to do throw new error and just leave it like this. And so we can go ahead and test this out and see if it works. Now that we have that, we can go ahead and hit close. And then come back into here. I have an extension called Thunder Client, so we're just going to go ahead and hit new request. And I believe our route is called /test/error post. We're just going to call this error. Let's actually remove this. We'll just call it /. And then http localhost 5001/error. And we should see the connection was refused. Let's see. Oh, server's not running. Okay, cool. Now let's try that again. Cool. We can see here error, random error. Let's go ahead and check our dashboard. And boom, we now see random error. You can make this error message to be whatever you want. So we want to say, let's say, unable to retrieve user. So unable to retrieve user data. Try that again, and boom, unable to retrieve user data. So if we come back into our dashboard and refresh, We should see a new error. It may take a second. Oh, right here. Unable to retrieve user data. Boom. Just like that. And yeah, so this is how you set up the Express Airbrake package. So, all right, so now we're going to be looking at setting up Airbrake for React client-side application. This does work with other frameworks as well, so don't be pressed that you have to use React. So what we're going to do is go into our Airbrake dashboard and hit New Project. We're just going to hit Add Manually, and we're going to call this Front React Front End, and hit Create Project. Cool. And it brings this up again. As you can see, you can do Vue, Python, Django, Flask. Like there's a whole bunch, and there's more down here as well. So go ahead and hit React, and we're just gonna go ahead and copy this as well. But first things first is we need to create the React package, React application. So yarn create React app, and then we're gonna say client template TypeScript. All right, now that that's set up, you should see a client folder or whatever you decided to name it with a bunch of files. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this const app return export default app. And I don't need the app.css. And then inside of our index as well, we can go ahead and remove index.css as well as this file because I do not need that. So now we're just gonna come back to Airbrake and have that copied and cd into our client yarn add airbrake/browser. So once you've added it, we're going to do a couple of things. First being copying and pasting all of this. But what we're going to do is you're going to need to create a component. So if you want to store that in a folder called components, you can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to do that for ease of use. And then we're going to say error boundary. And essentially what this will do is we'll wrap our entire application within this error boundary. And so anytime an error is thrown, it'll catch it and send that off to Airbrake's dashboard essentially. So go ahead and paste that. So you'll notice a couple of errors. And again, this is because we are using TypeScript. So we're just going to go ahead and fix a couple of these. First being, we can just omit that. The next is we need to pass in the props that we're using. So for that, you're going to come right here to component, and you're just going to do 2 arrow brackets like that. And then children is going to be a React node. And then our error is going to be null. And then we can actually pass props as any for now. And then we just want to create a Airbrake variable. So you can just say Airbrake as such. Cool. And then here we can just pass in any. So the reason we're passing in any is because we don't have types for Airbrake being exported, but I have written, I wrote a pull request that hopefully will get merged sometime that'll export these types. I'm working with the dev team to get this out, so hopefully we won't have to be passing any, just to keep everything type safe, because that's the whole point of TypeScript. And then we're just going to rename this to error as well, and then error as well. And then we're just going to rename this to null. I think that should be right. All right, so I realized I made a mistake. Up here, it's not supposed to say that. It's supposed to be children, React node, and then like this. And then instead of passing error as true, we're just going to pass in the error object itself. And essentially, that's the entire thing. You can go ahead and look at this deeper. It's pretty self-explanatory. we're initiating the Airbrake notifier, and then this essentially just catches the errors. We set the state. The reason we set the state for the error so that we can alert down here in the render, hey, something went wrong. But if there's no error state, then we can just return the children props. This is a native thing for React, so anytime you wrap a component and there's children within it, it automatically creates this prop for us. And I'll show you how to set this up as well. Essentially that's that. So the next step is to actually put this in an environment variable so that way we don't forget. So for that, go into client and set up a .env. And then inside of here, we're going to do React app Airbrake underscore project ID and then key as well. And then we're just going to go ahead and copy these into our environment variables. And then you can just go ahead and say process.env.react app, and then do the same thing as well. Process.env.react app, and then this will say key. Cool. And then the next step is to wrap this inside of all your components. If you have React router set up, you're going to want to wrap that around your router. So if you have, like, let's say a router component, you're going to want to wrap the error boundary that we just created. So error boundary like that. But because we only have one component, we're just going to say app itself. Cool. Now the next step is to actually test to see if this works. So go ahead and create a new component. If you want to test this out, I'm going to call this button.tsx. Say const button. And again, depending on your use case, you may want to do this differently. And we're just going to say button click me for an error. Cool. And then we're going to export as such. Now for here, we're going to say const throw error. And then we're going to say throw a new error, random client error. And then inside here on click, throw error. Cool. Now you're going to want to add this to your app component, wherever you want to use this or test it out. And boom. Cool. So now that we have all this set up, we're going to go ahead and test it out. So you want to come into your terminal, type in yarn start. Oh great, now we have a bunch of errors, so time to debug. Okay, so turns out some of the types are being exported. I'm gonna have to look deeper into it, but to fix the errors, if you're using environment variables for the project ID, you're just gonna wrap this and do parse int and then exclamation point. Just make sure you do have this variable set, otherwise it won't work properly. And then we're just gonna say for the project key as string. And again, make sure that this is there for sure. All right, and then you should see that there are no issues found. And we're gonna go ahead and test this out. So you wanna go into localhost 3000. Should see click me for an error button component, and let's see if it'll throw an error. So go ahead and click that. Cool, random client error. And then if we come into our dashboard, we should see, we should refresh, and boom, random client error. Aside from all the bugs that happened for me, this should take no less than like 10 to 15 minutes to set up for the client, and then like another 10 minutes to set up for the Express. So if you already have a project that's set up, this shouldn't take you super duper long to set up. And once you have that, you can see a bunch of info like URL. So let's say that it was a really specific route. You can see the URL where that occurred, the error message, you know, IPs, things like that. and yeah, how long ago it took. And yeah, so this is how to set up Airbrake for Express and React TypeScript projects. Um, I do currently also have a demo React project set up already, which you guys can go ahead and check out. This is public. It's also in the Airbrake official Slack, so feel free to check that out as well. Let's see if I can pull that up. You should see, yeah, right here. Go ahead, join their workspace. If you guys have any questions, feel free to like drop the questions. Very open and welcoming community. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next video.